Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole from the 4th District of Oklahoma. This is another one of our weekly chats. I would say this has been a kind of work week in Congress with a couple of important developments, but nothing actually finalized. Congress did do some things legislatively that were important. We passed a series of 3 bills to support and honor police, particularly local law enforcement, resolution against defunding of police departments, a piece of legislation that allowed federal police officers to actually buy service weapons. Right now, when it's time to replace the weapon's repossessed and destroyed. This would actually allow the officer in question, if he or she chose to purchase the weapon at obviously a very reasonable rate for their personal use. And again, we do that pretty routinely for local police officers. We've never done it for federal law enforcement. So this would actually save the federal government money, but more importantly, provide the officer with the ability to use a tool of the trade, so to speak, and have it if it was important to them personally or useful to them in some way. And we also, again, carried legislation to provide additional support for local officers. So actually, most of these bills are pretty bipartisan. We got several dozen Democrats to support them. Of course, Washington being Washington, there had to be some conflict, but the reality is we ought to always honor men and women that wear the blue and put themselves in harm's way to protect all the rest of us. And we appreciate their service, and I was glad to see the House both recognize that and pass some meaningful legislation that's supportive of local law enforcement. In addition to that, the approach process is beginning. We had several subcommittee meetings this week where bills were presented. We should, in the next 2 weeks, pass bills out on Homeland Security, on what's called Ledge Branch, which actually funds the operation of the House of Representatives, agriculture, and probably most importantly, Homeland Security. So some very significant pieces of legislation starting to move. Again, Senate's still going to have to pass their bills. They're going to have to be conferenced, but it's good to see the process moving along more or less on schedule. Finally, we had a breakthrough this week of sorts on the debt ceiling issue. As you know, Republicans have said repeatedly, look, we believe we need to pay our bills, but we also need to change our spending. The president just said, no, you just need to automatically raise the debt ceiling with no changes in spending and no linkage between the two. That's just ridiculous. I mean, quite frankly, you can't pass what's called a clean debt ceiling bill through the House of Representatives. Instead, a majority of the House said, yes, of course we'll pay our bills, but here's the changes we want in terms of overall spending. The Democratic Senate has not been able to pass a bill at all. They too demand a clean debt ceiling, but they can't pass one. And the president just simply hadn't gotten serious about negotiation. Finally, this week, he named a negotiating team. They are negotiating now. The Democrats in the Senate are more or less out of the negotiation. The Democrats in the House, who again are not able to actually deliver a bill, are also more or less out of the negotiation. The Senate Republicans are supportive of the Republican House position, so they're not doing anything independently, but they're certainly involved because, again, that's what they've told the Democrats. Look, we agree with the Republicans in the House. That's the bill we're supporting. So, again, finally, real negotiations underway. Now, we're not exactly sure when we hit the debt ceiling. Currently, the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, believes that it will be June 1st, but it's a very fluid target. It depends on extraordinary measures that are taken. Depends on how much tax revenue comes in on particular days. So we're not sure. We may have a little bit longer, but we don't have much longer. Again, the disappointment to me has been that the president chose not to negotiate for so long. He and Speaker McCarthy had their first meeting along with Majority Leader Schumer in the United States Senate, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell also in the United States Senate about this about 106 or 7 days ago. Then the president didn't meet for another 97 days. He just thought the problem would solve itself. Well, it's not going to solve itself. And once the Republicans actually passed a bill, they've sort of done their job. They've voted to raise the debt ceiling. They've put conditions with it that the president doesn't like and Democrats in the Senate don't like. But at least it's a position, and they've done their job. They've raised the debt ceiling. No Democrat has yet voted to raise the debt ceiling. So finally, they're getting serious about negotiation, and we're hoping we can get some reforms and some spending cuts in any package that actually does raise the debt ceiling. And those reforms will slow down the rate of increase in spending. We'll hopefully do some things to generate additional tax revenue. The only two things that have been off the table from a Republican standpoint is, number one, Republicans said we're not going to raise taxes. We're going to reduce spending. And number two, we're not going to pass a clean debt ceiling. That is, we're going to make changes in addition to allowing the United States just to continue to rack up debt. That's not an answer to our problem. The problem is we spend too much, and we've had no discipline over the last 2 years, where we've had literally trillions of dollars spent on top of the normal appropriation. Every American has paid for that with higher inflation. When you inject that much money in the economy, you push up the price of gasoline, groceries, and housing, and that hurts the average American. So we're working on that problem. Finally have a working partner in the president, and we'll see if we can get something done and hopefully done on time. But I was encouraged by the fact that we're talking and we've got the people in the room that need to do the negotiations. With that, it'll be a pretty dramatic between now and the end of the month to see if this deal can come together. The normal appropriations process will continue. You're going to see us churning out bills. I know we're working on one on transportation, housing, and urban development that we hope meets the country's needs in those areas, and frankly hopes that does some things to help address particular infrastructure needs and housing needs in Oklahoma. So we'll look forward to giving you another update next week. Again, thanks for listening in, and good luck and God bless.